Go back to Coast. George Norrie with you, along with Richard Hoagland. Richard, what have you been up to lately? I know we are constantly communicating, IMing, and emailing back and forth. But any traveling? What have you been doing?
To do two interesting expeditions. One is just a short ways away. There's an eclipse coming, an annular eclipse of the sun in 2012, one of two that happened this year. And as fate would happen, it actually is coming right to me here in Albuquerque, so I don't have to move very far from one end of the office to the other. And I'm going to be able to do some extraordinary actual torsion field measurements using our Accutron technology that I have trekked all over the world with Robin, from Mexico, pyramids there, to Guatemala, to Cal, the pyramids there, to England and the ancient monuments there. And I'm going to be able to do our first actual solar eclipse measurements, harking back to the Nobel laureate Maurice Allais, who discovered in 1954, when a total eclipse passed over his laboratory about 100 feet underground. He didn't even know it was going on. He's down there measuring pendulums, a variation of the Foucault pendulum, and suddenly, during the height of the eclipse, his pendulum goes crazy. It starts swinging backward and doing things that no self-respecting pendulum ever has done in the known history of science. And then he was able to repeat the observation, because science is repetition. You know, can you do it again?
Yeah.
With another eclipse in, I think, 1959. And the same thing happened. And since then, there have been scattered efforts to duplicate these measurements. There was a big effort spearheaded by NASA itself and a guy at the Marshall Space Flight Center, which is in the southern tier of the country down in Alabama, to do a very thorough and comprehensive and systematic set of measurements on the eclipse track in 1999, where the August eclipse crossed Paris and Europe in just about the same geometry as the one in 54, when Allais first made this, serendipitous discovery. And then something really bizarre happened, George. The chief NASA scientist, who had funneled all this data into Marshall as part of this global, united scientific effort to verify Allais, he disappeared from NASA and took all the data with him.
Where'd he go?
We don't know. He's never published it. No one can find him. It's like he just ceased to exist.
Who's John Galt?
Well, yeah. I mean, this, of course, adds the level of conspiracy, because it gets back to the theme of the Carter film. The big thing in the Carter film, which is the MacGuffin, which is the Hitchcock term for the big thing you're trying to find in a really cool movie, is the physics. The physics, the torsion field physics, which is called in the film the secret of the ninth ray, and I'll get into where that came from in a moment. It looks like, from what I saw in the film, remember, I've seen it twice now, it looks like the physics in the John Carter film, the physics which is big enough to transform and save Barsoom, to replenish the oceans, to make the deserts bloom, to do stunning magical things, which Deidre Thoris, as the chief regent of science of the city of Helium, has back-engineered from the bits and scraps left around the planet from what came before, is the same physics which the bad guys in the film, who are called the Therns, and they're really cool bad guys. Wait till you get there. You got to go see this movie, George, so we can have a real discussion.
Well, I was going to until I saw it was panned.
Well, then you got time to see it on the big screen. You got to see it big screen, IMAX is best, 3D IMAX, the whole 9 yards. Immerse yourself in what Mars, that Hoagland's been yakking about for decades, really looks like when you add in the missing players.
I got suckered into the bust scenario.
Well, you can't read reviews. Read the citizen reviews. Read the viewer reviews. Read the countless blogs and blog sites that have people actually went and saw it, and 90 to 1, they're raving about it. And they're going back 3, 4, 5, 6 times. But there's not enough of them, because most people bought the party line, the propaganda, go see the film, because someone is trying to conceal the physics that we are going to measure here in Albuquerque on the afternoon of May 20th, when the eclipse comes right to the doorstep of Enterprise. I mean, the odds of a total eclipse or an annular eclipse going around over any particular place on Earth is only once in every 300 years. So that's pretty cool, but I don't have to go to it. It's going to come to me. And I've got all these other measurements. Well, what we're measuring is a variation of what the Nobel laureate Maurice Allais measured back in 1954, which is when the planets align, or when, in this case, the sun and the moon align, the physics goes nuts. Inertia and gravity and all the things that are supposedly neatly explained in the textbooks and that, allow NASA to send rocket ships all over the solar system, the actual equations are different than are publicly published. This has been an effort, and Joseph Farrell can, attest to the veracity of this if you get him on the show again. There has been a systematic effort, we have now tracked, both of us and some others as well, for hundreds of years to develop what's called a two-track science. The real science buried deeply inside and suppressed from the general community.
That we don't see.
And we don't see. One which is based a stunning, in an Arthur Clarke term, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic kind of technology that's using this science, this physics, to make amazing things happen. That's the storyline of John Carter of Mars, the regent of science under her father, the Jedak, which is kind of / for king of one of these city-states, Helium, has figured out, has back-engineered this secret suppressed science which the Therns are using to systematically destroy Mars. And she says in one part of the film, and John Carter, Earth is next. I mean, Stanton is giving away all the secrets in this film, and that's why, in my political analysis, there has been this incredible, deliberate, systematic, concerted effort to keep as many people from going to see this film as possible because it's right up there on the big screen. Remember my dear friend Gene Roddenberry, and one of the last things he ever said to me when I showed him the first pictures of Cydonia? Remember that great line? He looked at me and he said, but Dick, if this was real, it would be on television. Meaning it would be in media. It would be on the big screen. It would be
big stuff.
And that's what Stanton has done. And I have now looked at every interview from him going all the way back to Wall-E and back to Finding Nemo and back to his role in Toy Story. Disney didn't put any of this stuff in the trailers. Look, films rise or fall on directors, right? When you say Spielberg, yes. if you know a film's by Spielberg, you almost don't have to know what it's about. You'll go see it, right?
That's right.
We are driven by the star system. Stanton had incredible storytelling credits and a technical group to absolutely, kill for. And he could not have produced, if you knew it was Stanton who had done this, a bad movie. Maybe not a super great movie, but certainly not a bad movie, given the storyteller he is. He's won 2 Oscars, for God's sake. You don't do that by making bad movies. But nowhere in the Disney marketing did they ever hint that Andrew Stanton was the same guy who had brought you Toy Story and Wall-E and Nemo. Nothing. Zip. Nada. That's how you keep people from the theaters who are the middle of the curve, who are not nerds like you and me.
And they were all classics. Well, we're going to come back to that, but I want to get your take now on just where we are, Richard, with our space program, because I'm hearing all kinds of strange stories.
Well, we are poised on the edge of either astonishingly amazing things or on the edge of catastrophe. And I can't tell tonight which. So I will lay out both scenarios. Did you happen to read Bob Zubrin's op-ed piece I sent you?
Yes, I sure did.
I mean, he has nailed it from the conventional perspective. My job at Enterprise and here on Coast is to bring
the unconventional.
Exactly. So I'm going to give you the two. Why don't you summarize what Zubrin says, then I'll tell you what my take might be.
Well, Zubrin basically, and I'm going to do it in a 2-line paragraph, says we're butchering the space program, and we should be developing a program to go to Mars, and from there take over.
Yep, that's it. In the FY 2013 budget, fiscal year 13 NASA budget, that the Obama administration has submitted formally to the Congress. The Mars missions, all the unmanned Mars missions, which have been going every 2 years, because in terms of celestial mechanics, you can send a robot spacecraft to Mars every 2 years.
Right. And we've had some great missions.
Oh, we've had all kinds of missions. We've had the rover missions. We've had the orbiter missions. We've had Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which has a super telescope orbiting that can take photographs of things the size of my desk from, 100, 200 miles up. We've had stunning missions concurrently building on the one that came before. There is a major robotic mission en route now, which will arrive literally in weeks, which is a car-sized, a VW car-sized, nuclear-powered rover called Curiosity, which is going to be lowered down through the atmosphere after re-entry, or after entry, technically speaking, on something called a sky crane, which is right out of the most wild dreams of Edgar Rice Burroughs you can imagine.
Yeah, this is the first time this is going to be used,
the
right?
First time ever. And after that, the NASA budget, as submitted by Obama, goes zero for Mars. Nothing. We have canceled funding with the Europeans, something called ExoMars, in 2016 and 2018. There's no sample return missions. There's no more orbiters, no more reconnaissance, nothing going to Europa like we thought in some of the early budget projections. And Zubrin is rightfully tearing out his hair, as only he can do in the pages of the Washington Times.
He's the best at that.
And he's got some really elegant prose in his piece. So, people should go to the Washington Times and simply, Google Zubrin, Obama shoots down Mars exploration, because he can't figure out, and there have been resignations at NASA headquarters. Ed Weiler, who has shepherded so much of this amazing science, Hubble and the rovers, Sojourner and Opportunity through NASA, and then there's, for the tragedy of the Hubble mirror not working, and then the fix where they brought it back to life and it's done stunning, amazing things and given us views of distant places that we've never seen before in 3D color, and the rover missions that have learned that Mars was chock full of water. In other words, all the science that NASA has learned has built up to the fact that the science of the real Mars is the science of Burroughs' current.
Is this, though, the public perception of Mars that's been canceled?
No, these are real missions.
I know, but these are the public missions.
Well, yeah.
What about the ones that we don't
hear about? We have no idea what the black missions, the secret space program is doing, but let's just stay with the NASA mission.
All right.
Zubrin and the science community are tearing their hair out, as I said a moment ago, because to them this seems like the end. This is it.
Yes.
The Hoagland Enterprise perspective is a little bit different. This is 2012. This is the year when the apocalypse is supposed to happen. Now, the apocalypse is not the end of the world. The apocalypse is insight, revelation, uplifting of mankind, the revealing of secrets, the opening of doorways to new consciousness, right? That's the literal meaning of the Latin term.
Or portals.
A portal to an unusual consciousness-raising set of experiences and information. What if the Obama folks know, based on where they have targeted this Curiosity nuclear-powered car-sized rover to land, which we discussed somewhat extensively in the last full show I did a few months ago, what if they know that in the next 12 months, let's say, between 2012 and 2013, there are going to be stunning revelations that are going to finally bring to light the Mars that I've been researching, the Mars Edgar Rice Burroughs was writing about from some unknown source 100 years ago, the Mars laid out in this incredibly interesting film, hint, hint, people got to go see. What if that suddenly hits the mainstream New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, CNN, etc., and suddenly either the presence of current microbial life or the presence of past intelligent artifacts from past intelligent life is suddenly made known, suddenly brought out of the closet because of this rover and where it's going and what it's got on board in terms of science to be able to carry out. And you would then know that every NASA plan, every funding of every unmanned mission is going to get thrown in the scrap heap instantly anyway, because at that point, suddenly there will be an overwhelming demand planet-wide to send human beings to Mars. Robert, are you listening?
So you think the plan is cancel the robotics, let's go there physically.
Exactly, because no one's going to want robots to go. They're going to want people. Now, again, you just said something important. You said you think. No, this is a scenario. This is a projection of another possibility that takes the same data and fits it into a different explanation. Now, I have additional information to support this scenario, such as the White House this past Christmas released a Christmas card. And I spent a lot of time on my Facebook page with a lot of my 40,000 fans and friends having fun decoding what was in the card.
What was in the card?
Basically, a tip-off that Curiosity is going to reveal ancient life on Mars.
What was
since
the,
I can't put up pictures.
What were the clues?
Well, they're visual.
Ah.
You have to go to either Enterprise or my Facebook page to go back and scroll back like months back to before Christmas when the Christmas card came out, which was, I think, December 17th. So if there's a way to search in Facebook for that conversation, there was a bulletin I posted, an editorial, and then we had days and days and days of discussion that went on for hundreds, if not thousands, of exchanges, entries. But I will do that again as we get closer to Curiosity getting to Mars, and I'll do it on Enterprise. We've now solved almost, we think, all of the software problems that have kept me from posting an Enterprise for at least a couple of years. And we will begin posting new stuff on Enterprise, which is the proper place to post lengthy things that need buttressing and substantiation and documentation, and then we can all have fun talking about it over at Facebook. The point is there are clues. Again, like the Easter eggs that Stanton has buried in this film, John Carter. I mean, what person, what company, what major marketing behemoth in their right mind, when they've got a film based on a 100-year-old property where most of the people who ever read it are probably dead in the original, and a whole new generation has been introduced to it through either comic books or hand-me-down books or hearing about it maybe in a English writing course in school or something? Who would possibly take Of Mars out of the title so that your standalone title is just John Carter? Who the hell is John Carter?
And by the way, Curiosity lands August 6th.
Yep. John Carter was a player, was an actor, was a person in ER. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
And that John Carter was named after the John Carter in the Edgar Rice Burroughs books in the story arc of the ER, television show. So obviously, a lot of people, when they saw John Carter in the trailers, what is this guy from ER doing on? Where is he?
He's on Mars.
How do you conceal science fiction by not revealing that it's going to Mars? It made no sense. It was dumb, unless it was dumb as a fox, because it was designed to keep the audience to a minimum. Well, if we're reading the Easter eggs that the Obama White House put into this Christmas card correctly, and there is one huge Easter egg, which if people go and find the card and then compare it to the logo of the Curiosity NASA mission, side by side, compare them, you'll see what Obama's trying to say in this scenario.
Why did they do it in code, Richard? We're going to come back. Hold on for a second. We're going to come back in a moment. We'll talk more about that on Coast to Coast AM.